Mm.
Good morning, happy people. It is April 6, 2020, and this is the High Five. Today we're going to talk about the best things we did this weekend. We're going to talk about favorite risk takers in the business. We're going to talk about the biggest surprise busts in sports, and we're going to answer the question, what is our superhero talent, as well as talking about all week about cold calling and how to be most effective at it. This is the High Five.
High five.
The time has come. The questions are said.
All right, guys. I was actually trying to do something, and I can't. It's going through, and I can't hear it. You guys know it's a theme song going through.
It's all the same.
Is it going?
It's going. I forgot that I can't hear it, but I can see the little monitors going, and they can hear us talking over it. It is the High Five. Thank you very much. I am Nate Manahan. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, getting started on a Monday morning. I worked till about 2:30 this morning, and now I'm back up, ready to roll. And I have two of the greatest people in the Papertech history of people, Mr. Danny Shard from Glenwood Springs, Colorado, and maybe California. Maybe it's fallen off. I don't know. All right, how are you, Mr. Danny?
Good morning. High five, everybody. Happy Monday. Here we go.
All right, and from Warsaw, Indiana, the home of the wrestling state finalist, Mr. Jacob Linke, but really better known for his father, Mr. Brian Linke. How are you, Brian?
Nate, I'm really good. The thing is, let me tell you something. I need you in the morning, man. You've got a lot of energy for a Monday. I really appreciate it.
I don't know. This is all fake energy right now. This is totally fake energy and a little bit of caffeine induced. But let's start with what we start with every Monday morning, and it's kind of our third week in a row. What was the best thing we did, the best thing we ate? What is the best thing that happened to us in the last 2 days as we actually had kind of a weekend? I don't know. Weekends are a different thing, obviously, through our quarantine. But let's start. Mr. Danny Shard, what was the best thing you did this week?
This weekend, best thing, gosh, for me, what really stands out is huge parent win potty training moments are happening right now. I know that's probably pretty boring for most of you, but it is massive for us. So big potty training wins, and a lot of fun too. We went on some walks, got out of the house a little bit. It was a great weekend.
That is so awesome. That is a huge win when you get the potty train. Huge win.
I didn't think I would be so excited.
I don't think we can top that, Brian. There's no chance that we could top that because all of our kids have passed that moment. But I remember that moment when it started to all kick in, and it's a good timing for that since you're about to go back into it. Whoops. Yep. Hey, there's your full screen. So let's go, Mr. Brian Linke. What is the greatest thing that happened to you this weekend? Something you watched, saw, did?
Well, okay. I'm gonna throw a little twist in this. I can tell you what the worst thing I watched was on Saturday night. I spent the evening watching Avengers with Jacob Linke and Ben Linke, and 10 minutes in, I see Ben, I look over, and his mouth is wide open, snoring. And I watched it, and I don't know, an hour in, and next thing you know, my mouth was wide open, snoring, and then Jacob was on top of me, screaming at me to open my eyes because I'm going to miss the best part. Okay, let me tell you something. There is no best part. Who was the good guy? That's the question. Who was the bad guy? Anyway, but the best thing that I watched this weekend, I started watching a series called Ozark. And I saw some of our partners have started watching that, and it's something that it's an amazing show, and it's hard to stop watching. So Ozark is the best. Avengers is by far the worst.
So, well, first, I love the Avengers and one of the great movies of all time. But okay, we'll debate. But Ozark is amazing, freaking amazing. It is. So you're just early on in first season, is that right? Or how far did you get?
I'm on season 2, episode. Okay. I think episode 6 or 7.
So the cartel is fully on. I just have to say, I know he watches some mornings with us, certainly watches afterwards. Every time I watch something about the Ozark in Missouri, and they're driving through the lands of southeast Missouri, I think Bradley Alton. That's all I think. I think, man, he's actually... probably part of this, isn't he? He's got his poppy fields out there that he's growing right there. Okay, sorry, Bradley. I'm not incriminating you.
I have a feeling that Bradley Alton does not have his poppy fields out there. Hey, that's just me. That's just me.
So for me, the best thing. So I love introducing my kids to older movies, or older, like, 90s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s movies. And this week on Saturday night, sat them all down and had them watch Forrest Gump. We fast forward through a couple scenes, but the thing about, I'm always trying to find the movie that everybody finds something, laughs, enjoys, that my 16-year-old enjoys, and so does my 7-year-old. And that was a fun thing for me, that movie. And I'd forgotten how good Tom Hanks is in that movie. My word, he's just so good all the way through. And so is Gary Sinise. And watching that movie, and just kind of the reminder that sometimes we have to have the perspective of time and distance. So I get a 2-take because I am hosting and I can keep the camera on me. The second best thing I watched was watching, and I either see this, the Queen Elizabeth, and it's actually going to go, it's a 10-second clip, it's going to go in a video that's going out to our partners today. So if you're not on our partnership email today, email it inmanahan@papersec.com and I'll make sure you get one. But in the video today, I put a clip of Queen Elizabeth talking, and she's from Windsor Castle, and it's the typical Windsor Castle BBC live from Windsor Castle as it spans across the beautiful green lawns of Windsor Castle, and then slow fades into the Queen in this incredibly gallivant room. But for 3 minutes, she talks about what we're going through in a way that only a 95-year-old monarch can. And she talks about how she and her sister in 1940 encouraged the children of London as they were being evacuated to try to save their lives. So if and eventually when they were bombed, they were out. And no one else can speak from that perspective. And when I watched that, I wanted to run through a wall and become British, but that may have been a whole other thing. I just thought that you can't see anything else from perspective, and that's why we have to respect our elders, right, Mr. Brian Linke?
Absolutely. Thank you, Nate.
So, all right. I'm not going to do the interstitials today because I'm going to try to keep this going, because the one comment I had, I was talking to somebody today, just like, could you keep it at 30 minutes? We've been pushing over 38, 40 minutes, so we're going to try to keep it. We're going to number two. Wait. Oh, okay.
One more thing. One of the best things I also watched this weekend was Colton Sales on TikTok, who kept sending me one video after the next. So I thought I have to give him a little bit of airtime on that.
Okay, breaking news right here. Is this something that we know, that Brian Linke is on TikTok?
I'm on TikTok, and I have to like be disciplined enough to put it down, because it's although I don't know how to do like the part 2 thing. Like what do you do? You like it, then it comes back, and I don't know how to whatever. But it's it's entertaining.
It is. It is a deep dive that you could spend your whole life, because they just keep feeding you funny thing, interesting thing, and if you start liking things, it just keeps coming, and you could spend all day going into it. I have not opened it in a while because I can't. But man, the creativity. So, are you on? I have produced one TikTok video. I'm not. I think I have 6 followers, so very few people have seen it. Have either of you actually produced, or are you just viewers of TikTok videos?
I'm a viewer.
I'm a viewer. I'm a total viewer. My niece is very much into it. In fact, all of my nieces are. So I'm getting some TikTok videos sent to me on a regular basis. But
Me
yeah,
too.
it's creative. It's pretty cool to sit there. But I'm telling you, before you know it, you're just watching these little, 10, 20-second snippet videos, and it's been an hour, and you're like, okay,
Right.
I could have spent that hour a lot more productive than I just did.
Yeah. But
Same thing.
if there's ever a time,
TikTok don't.
yes, but if there's ever a time where an hour of just like it's like this morning early, I watched John Krasinski's Some Good News. If you haven't seen it, episode 2, he's putting them out on Sundays, and if you're a Hamilton fan, you'll love it. And he's just doing fun things. I think it's 8-9 minutes, something like that. But when you get driven, you just need some type of caveat in your life, some type of distraction that is positive, and TikTok can be that. And as a whole, it's a fairly positive piece. Now, there are negative things on there for sure, and there's lots of, I wouldn't let my kids on it yet, but it has some really, without extreme controls, but it has some fun things. All right, number 2. Here we go. We're going to talk today about, and all week we're kind of having a theme going throughout, risk-taking, gambling, going for it, striving for it. We are in a time in the world where everything is changing, things are changing around us, but it gives us the opportunity for those of us who take risks, who take a step forward, we can make a difference, we can make a change for our own lives. And so I sent emails, and they may go outside of this, I sent 5, I think, articles to Brian and Danny, listing some people that had taken big risks in your life that had succeeded, that they put it all on the line for either a business risk or some of them were like personal risks and things like that. I'm interested, who is one of your favorite risk takers? What was the risk they took, and why does that resonate with you? I don't know who's going to go first. I'll let you guys choose.
I can go first. I don't have one person. I guess if I had to say one person, Matt Hoskins would actually come to mind. But any 1099 sales agent, in my opinion, is a big time risk taker, right? Because basically what you're doing is you're putting, your whole livelihood based on what you do. And I've been I was a 1099 sales guy for a long time. And I remember when I gave up the salary back in my late 20s and decided that, you know what, the real money is in the 1099 sales, just because I'm getting paid a higher percentage. Different industries, but same thing. So again, I guess I'm complimenting our guys and ladies who are salespeople at PayProtect, because they're 1099 sales agents. This coronavirus thing obviously has put a little bit of thrown a little bit of a curveball to everybody. There's nothing to fall back on for these 1099 people, but if you're a 1099 sales agent, I think you're a big risk taker, and it's something where I've definitely learned to respect those people. So that's my answer.
All right. Danny Shard, how about yourself? What is something that you would highlight there?
Well said, Brian. I gotta admit that's a great answer, because every commission-only 1099 salesperson has taken a huge risk, right? Most of you did not have that cushion as you started this position, which completely relied on your production, right? So I think that's massive risk taking. Mine is my grandfather. I've actually got a poster. I just took it down from the wall. This is my grandfather back in, I don't know, it's like does it say it on there? I think it's like 1978 or something. So he was the CEO of Golden Triangle Plastics. And this is something that I've got hanging up in my office that always motivates me, because back in 78, they had their Best in the West. They do this every month, and they had $412,000 in sales for the month in 1978. So pretty good, huge risk taker. And in fact, what they did was they sold plastic pellets, and some of their main customers were like GM. They would take those pellets and melt them down into like dashboards and seatbelt buckles and things like that. So he sold the business in the late 80s, and one of the things that he negotiated in the sale of the business was that he and my grandmother get medical insurance for life. So it was a huge thing, and yeah. So he left us about 6 years ago, 5 years ago actually, and my grandmother, she's 84, and she's had her ups and downs with medical issues, but has never had to pay a dime because of that. So my grandfather, huge risk taker, like all of us in sales. So that's my guy.
Is that a leisure suit he's wearing?
No, this is just he's just a cool dude with the unbuttoned, down, you got the hamburger meat hanging out. I mean, he's just a sales guy all the way. You got the mustache going. I'm going to have to do one of those.
All right, I will jump in there. You guys went much more personal than I was going, so we'll work on that in days to come, because I've got some things I want to share. But the one I was thinking about, I read last year a biography on Elon Musk and how he came from South Africa, went to I think it's King's or Queen's College, I forget, one of those monarchy colleges in Canada. And he was always driven by science, and obviously, as I've heard Pat McAfee always says, he really believes he's just an alien trying to get back to his planet. That's why he created SpaceX. And but he was driven by something else at PayPal Mafia with a group of, I think, 5 of the co-founders of PayPal. As they grouped several together, he started a payments group, and they all kind of merged together, and they became what was known as PayPal. Eventually was sold to eBay. He made a large source of that money. And what did he do when he made that large source of money? To take these new ventures and things that he's passionate about, he cares about, things makes the difference. And I'm glad there are people do it. We don't all do it to that extremes, where we're taking hundreds of millions of dollars and taking the risk that it's going to be a zero-sum game. I think there is some wisdom into taking care of some other things, but it's the ability to see forward and see the vision and see what's out there in the future and make that choice. And Elon, he is a character, and if you ever get to sit down and do a deep dive into his interviews and into his backstory, he is a character for sure. All right, gentlemen, are you ready for number 3? Let's get to something a little sports related. Get Mr. Brian Linke a chance, because I know he always has an opinion here, as he is our sports almanac. Can you tell me, Mr. Brian Linke, who is the biggest surprise bust in sports? Team, individual, who is it? Who is a person or team that comes to mind when you think of sports bust?
The number one thing to me this morning when I saw the question, the first thing that came to my mind, and this is kind of a morbid thing, but Len Bias was probably the biggest bust, right? Because
good one.
I mean, I thought he was a can't miss coming out of Maryland when he got drafted by the Celtics. I mean, just so dominant, and the Celtics never or rarely, if ever, make a mistake when they draft somebody, right? They drafted Larry Bird when he was at Indiana State out of college, and they changed the rule after that. You couldn't do that, but Len Bias probably. But being that living in Indiana, if we're not going to go with Len Bias, I would have to say that Ryan Leaf is probably the number one biggest bust that I can remember. Only because I remember when it was him or Peyton Manning for the Colts, who I believe they were they 1 in 15 the year before, or something like that. But and then when the Colts drafted Peyton Manning instead of Ryan Leaf, I thought that was a huge mistake. Just because in college, I just thought that, I mean, they were both amazing, but I just thought Ryan Leaf was probably the guy to pick. He's just bigger, stronger, bigger arm, the whole thing, and that would have been the Colts wouldn't be in Indianapolis today if that would have happened. I don't think. The city is where it is right now. The Circle Center Mall, the whole thing doesn't get built without Peyton Manning. So I would have to say that Ryan Leaf is the biggest bust.
I like that a lot. And the interesting thing about Ryan Leaf is he was the biggest bust in sports. Then he took even a deeper dive, and he tells his own story, getting involved into some opiate addictions that eventually took him into some places that he ends himself in jail for, I forget, a period of time, 12 months. But in there, finally, after a period, I forget the numbers of the time, he gets a hold of his life. He starts teaching people how to read in prison, and has totally changed and revolutionized his life, making a difference in other people's lives, and showing that, hey, you're not just your last act. You always have a next act if you choose to, because he was a complete bust, and he admits that. Like when he talks now, he admits that, hey, I was not who I could have been, and some of that was he tells interesting stories about the Chargers, because that, do you want to be part of that, and whether they supported him. Recently, he put his first quote out talking about how he actually played into the Giants getting Eli Manning because Archie called Ryan Leaf's dad and asked him, did they support your son as a rookie? And his dad's like, man, I just really feel like they didn't support him the way he should. And in that, Eli chose to play hardball and force the trade, which actually probably ties into the Colts again, because Colts now get Phillip Rivers coming in. But I love that. That's a great, both Len Bias and those are both great answers. How about you, Danny?
Mine are also I've got two quarterbacks, but then this morning I'm thinking there's a lot of busts, right?
A lot.
There's a ton, and one of the ones, just away from football for a second, because I've got to mention those. But one of the ones is Greg Oden, right? I think it was it 06, 07, something like that. When he was drafted, and I don't even know how many games the guy played.
Yeah, I am less than a half mile from the high school that he played at right now, from Lawrence North High School.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Played at
the guy was
Lawrence North High
massive.
School.
Yep.
Did he go to college? Where did he go to college?
He did Ohio State, a 1 year in Ohio State.
Ohio State.
With Mike Conley.
Okay.
Okay, the thing about but the thing is the question was the biggest buzz. I mean, Greg Oden got hurt, right? I mean, so like he got hurt and then he got hurt again and he got hurt again, and the injury thing just killed him. But
the injury makes it a bust. Yeah.
I talk about this guy all the time when I'm talking about this topic, which I think gets brought up fairly often. And mine is Jamarcus Russell. You want to talk about one of the bigger busts of all time, but not just a bigger bust, but you got to be a smart guy to get that far through that many interviews and get that amount of guaranteed money and just completely dump it. Brian's probably got something to say about Jamarcus Russell, but
the only thing I have to say is he found a way to cheat on all the tests because he got it.
That's exactly right.
He somehow found a way to get through those tests. Maybe, I don't know, the Cliff Notes or whatever he had to read. But once he got into the NFL, it was okay. That was way over his head.
Yeah. My last one is it's got to be Brock Osweiler. I've just got a little down. I don't want to say hate, but dislike for that guy. As coming in as a Bronco fan, and then he was on Super Bowl 50 with us. He was on that team, and he contributed. Peyton went down that year, and Brock stepped in, but he stepped into one of the best offensive lines and one of the best defenses that he had on the other side of the ball for him. So he won 6 games for us, I think, and then gets all this guaranteed money, holds out, gets all this guaranteed money from the Texans. They immediately ship him up to Cleveland. I think it's the true story of you fake it till you make it, and he was that guy that just kind of stood in, went through the motions, and was just in the right place at the right time and got a ton of guaranteed money but was worthless. So Brock Osweiler would be a close second to Jamarcus Russell for me, anyway.
Our boy Kevin Leslie just chimed in with Kwame Brown, which is that's good. That's a good.
Huge. That's a good one.
Answer.
Yeah.
Good answer. The thing about this question, the first thing I thought was, okay, what we need to do is we need to have some virtual happy hour, because I can list you a laundry list of guys. Okay, and we could drink beers deep into the night. So
I like the idea. At some point, that's a good 5 or 6 o'clock some Eastern time some night. We just open up the live stream and we the Brian rant stream, and we just all sit and listen and chime in every 10 minutes or so. We might get about a 5-second interlude there, because I knew this would be a good one. For me, I'm going to go a team, and I'm going to go recent history, because it was something we were all waiting for. But again, rags to riches. the Virginia Cavaliers losing to UMBC, perfect storm, a 1-16 matchup in March Madness. We would have been, national championship would have been tonight if the games were still going on, and we're disappointed that we're not getting to watch it. So I had to think back to some of the history of those. And tomorrow, we're actually, the question on Sports Question is going to be our greatest NCAA March Madness moments, so certainly look for that. But for me, I've been waiting for, you watch it. We'd seen a 2-15. The 5-12 upset happens all the time, but you're waiting. And I remember tuning in 2 years ago and just going, oh my word, this is going to happen. Because it wasn't even close. It was dominant the whole time. I mean, UMBC was just up, often in double digits, and Virginia just couldn't do it. But talk about resilience the next year coming back and winning the national championship, coming down from that bus, just getting into as a team, and be able to pick your head up and look up and go, you know what, we can scrap together and do this, and we can actually win the championship. And they proved that was just a fluke, because sometimes busts are just flukes, sometimes they're poor life decisions, sometimes they're injury, but all of them, no matter what, we can have a second act in our life, no matter what the bust is. Any last comments on that topic?
Well, there was a guy who played for Florida State. Listen to this. He was Mr. Football and Mr. Basketball in the state of Florida his senior year of high school. Okay? Mr. Football and Mr. Basketball in the state of Florida his senior year of high school. His name was Adrian McPherson. He came to Florida State and broke every single rule you could break, stole checks, forged his name, went to jail. He's a bust. Adrian McPherson.
Reminds me of Maurice Claret, right?
Maurice Claret, he's another one.
Another one. Again, we can talk about this forever, but
right.
Yeah, there's unfortunately been some pretty good busts. But you make a good point, Nate. There's a lot of factors that go into it. It's decisions. It's right place or wrong place. There's so many factors that go into being a bust.
Yeah, one of the biggest ones is DUM, right?
DUM.
I think that's the number one reason.
Well, and we all, every one of us have been a bust at some point just because of our own decisions, situations, no matter what it is. And it's the question of what do you do to overcome that, and what do you do to make the next step? And sometimes you just have to have a superhero in your life. And that goes into our number 4 question, and that was a professional radio transition, asking you guys, what in the world would you do if you had a superhero power? What would that superhero power be, and how would you use it? Who's going to go first here?
This is an easy one, I think.
Go ahead, Brian.
If I had to pick one, it would be. I don't even know if this is a superpower, but to me, it's a superpower. Would be being invisible. That would be. I mean, that's the first thing that I thought of was, okay. Can you imagine if you were invisible? What are the things that you could do, you could get away with? I mean, that to me, again, that's just being invisible. I'd be crazy.
So what would you use being invisible for, Brian? What would be your superpower?
We need to do this virtual happy hour, and I could. Although this is a PG-13 show, so I choose not to answer that because I'm an R-rated guy, and but just know that being invisible is my number one pick.
All right. Mr. Danny Shard, what is your superhero power that you're going to use, and maybe you'll tell us how you use it?
I want to be a mind reader, and I think that's a superpower, right? I'm not really into this.
You just stole mine, so now I got to come up with a new one. That was where I was going.
As a salesman, I think nothing is going to make us more, and something we'll talk about on the next topic is know your audience. And, nothing's going to make you more successful than already knowing what the person wants to hear and how they can be sold. And I mean, you're going to be a bazillionaire in a lot of different factors if you can be a mind reader. So sorry to steal yours, Nate, but perks of being before the host, I guess.
No, that's good.
It's a great answer.
Well, for me, I'm going to keep with that answer because I was thinking through that and I was like, what are the things that I want to know? One, it's not just for knowing everyone's thoughts, so certainly that would be funny, but the empathy, the being able to, like, there's so many times, there were, I was with my sister on Saturday night and things were going on and life was just kind of getting to me and stressed, and she could tell that and she could see it. But most of the time we can hide all that. We can hide what we're really thinking, what we're going through. We don't show that. And I'm like, man, if I could just reach into your mind and help know what's really going on, I could actually help. And sometimes I could just make fun of you. But so there are so many interesting powers, but I would totally agree, Danny. That's where I would go. Let's go to number 5, our last topic, our sales, our business-to-business sales question. All week we're going to be talking about cold calling basics and things that we do to interact and engage. And let's define cold calling as engaging with someone we do not have a personal relationship with, and they have no idea who we are and what value we are going to bring to their life. And cold calling can come not just in a phone call, but can come in an email, can come in a variety of walking in the door and attempting to get that first conversation going. But today we're going to talk about cold calling cold emailing. When you're sending an email to someone, you got their email, maybe there's a reference or something, and you're trying to engage with them for the first time in written word where you have their personal email. And that's something more and more that's easy, not easy, but ways to come with. We can find emails. You can, there are those of you who are our partners out there that just, skim businesses and find out that business email and find that email that somebody's going to open and they're going to read, but you got to get their attention. And so I'm interested from our superhero sales guys, Mr. Danny and Mr. Brian, what would you put in, what would you say, what are the important parts of that email if you're engaging with them for the first time?
Well, I'm going to let Danny Shard answer this because let me tell you something. I'm not really sure who's better, Danny or Billy West, but both of them have a gift when it comes to sending an email. Just amazing. I mean, it's just like, why do we even bother to even try? Because the two of them are just, and Matt Hoskins is right up there with them. But so Dan, go ahead and answer that.
I will answer it. Thank you, Brian. That's very nice of you to say this Monday morning. I appreciate that.
Well,
I'll put Billy and Matt ahead of me. Their email skills are next level. So, I actually spoke with a few partners about this last week, and you heard me just say know your audience, right? There's obviously you want to, like you're saying, that you want to hit on a trigger that's immediately going to make them, okay, let me get back to this person, right? There's a couple factors that go into that too is, do you already have some sort of a connection with them, or is this 100% cold? You got a list from somebody, right? And obviously it's a little bit easier if it's a referral, because I think the first thing you want to do and keep in mind when you're doing this is you got to keep it short and sweet, direct to the point. If you can make an immediate connection, whether it's I frequent your business at this location, or so-and-so introduced me to you, and I'd love to talk to you about your business and how you're getting through this time today. That immediate connection is going to make them continue reading, right? Because they're going to know that person, or they're going to know that you're a customer of theirs, and they want to hear more. I think that's the most important. And then you leverage a couple of things. And again, this is where the know your audience comes in. Every single one of them, like you've heard myself, Nate, Matt, everybody talk about, is eliminating your processing fees, right? That's going to strike a chord with any merchant, regardless of what your approach is initially. If they get to that point in the email, they're going to want to know more, and they're going to get back to you because they want to save that money. They want to eliminate those fees. We got to think too, a lot of merchants right now are getting billed monthly fees or getting billed things like that we can help them avoid even if they're down, right? If they're on a flat rate pricing model, if they're in one of our various point of sale systems where we could even put that monthly software fee on hold for a month or two if they're not up and running right now. So there's a lot of things that we can do for these merchants, even if they're not in business right now, to eliminate their processing fees. But then you're talking about things like online ordering, and it's the time right now, and it's an opportunity for all of us to really start offering things and taking some extra investments in these merchants, right? Like Matt had a great idea last week about giving them a portion or even all of your bonus, right? Like, and being transparent with the merchant and saying, hey, I'm going to give you a commission that I earn. It's going to go right back to your bottom line. So it's things like that. The online ordering piece is huge. Retail Cloud is doing a great thing about building sites and adding online ordering at no cost. I think it is, Nate, for like 60 or 90 days or something like that. So if you can trigger on a connection and then how to eliminate fees, and these are things that directly impact their bottom line that they're very sensitive to, you're going to get a response back. I've got some great scripts as well that I can help you build. And obviously times are different now, but if you've got a foundation that you can have laid out and then customize that for each one, that's ideal. I can help with it. Let me know.
All right, Mr. Brian Linke, what is the what is one thing or something you would do in connecting with someone cold through an email?
Well, how do I follow that? I mean, my goodness gracious, just do what Danny said, and you'll be fine. But you're talking to a guy here who like started out his career in New York City, cold calling door to door, with a shoebox and index cards, right? And like you would go call an XYZ company, and on the 6th of April, and you'd want to go call them back on the 13th, so you take the index card, you put it in the 13th. Okay, so when it comes to emailing, for new leads, I'm probably not the right guy to talk to. I had a Rolodex on my desk up until about 2 weeks ago, which I'm exaggerating. But the thing that I would do, because I'm just not an email lead guy. I'm a phone call, face-to-face guy. I always have been. I always will be. I was talking to Kevin Lashley last week about, he's a trade show guy, face-to-face, needs to get in front of people. And that's just who I am. But if I had any advice to offer on the email, in the subject line, I would do things like, like XYZ company, which is let's just say XYZ Liquors, and you're emailing ABC Liquors. And XYZ Liquors is a cash discount merchant of ours. I think if you're emailing ABC Liquors and putting XYZ Liquors, say, hey, you know what, these guys are saving money, blah, 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 and I just think that gets people's attention. Again, I don't know if that's the right thing, but I think the subject line is a big one. I think the more creative that you can get, because if the subject line isn't creative enough, I don't think you're going to get too many merchants that are even going to open the email. So I just think that you just need to sit back and get people to open up the subject line, and then once they open the email, and then like Danny said, keeping it short and sweet, 1-2 sentences maybe, and maybe a link or two for them to click on, and so that's my answer.
Those are very good answers. I'm going to add into that a little bit, a couple things. One, I would do, if you're doing a cold email, do as much social stalking, we will call it that for lack of a better term, but reconnaissance missions to go out and find things about them. And I would use that, just like Brian, that's a great tip, Brian, use that in the tip. Get them something that they recognize and see. So if you're working with a towing company and you know that they're offering half-priced towing trips during this, say, hey, I really love your half-price deal, or something like that in the subject line that gets them, because we're all narcissistic. We just are. And we all care about ourselves first. It's the way we gradually learn as we become parents and we start caring about, but we're always thinking about what is in this for me. So we have to figure out how to engage in that and help them start doing that. Second, here, and this is something I'm doing this week. So I have a list that I have pulled, and I'm going to walk you through this whole week of how I'm doing this, of 255 restaurants that we do not process with, that are actively by social media. I can tell that they are active, still selling, fighting, doing takeout, carry out things, and I can get to a personalized email because I was just able to find it. So I created this list, and I've already sent 10 emails, but I did a different email. So I did an email, and let me see if I'll pull up. I did an email through what's called Loom. Sometimes I use Drift Video, but I did this because it's free for you guys. So there are other things that we can use, and there are paid things that eventually, if they're worth, they give you more sources. But Brian and Danny know that I do this a lot with, and a lot of you probably have received singular ones when I do it, is I record a quick video with me talking to it. I put a GIF in there with their little name flashing around that I put out in their piece of paper, or a lot of times I just write it on my phone and put it in front of the camera and then pull it off, and then I talk to them. And so I sent already 10 emails to cold calls, and I didn't one thing talk about anything I wanted to sell them. I just talked about something I saw online about what they were doing, and then at the end asked them a question about why they made that decision. So some of them were, how did you decide on what your family packs were? Some of them were, how did you decide that you were going to add DoorDash and Grubhub? Because I'm just trying to collect information, and studies certainly show if we can get them to have that first response, we're so the goal is to get them to engage with us, to interact with us. I've never heard anyone who's very successful in the one email close. I mean, maybe there is, and if they are, we'll bring you on the show and you can walk us through that process. But I got 10 emails sent out. I got 3 replies. That is a great response rate. And people just responding, and so I'm going to continue to engage with them. They were all responding to questions that were personalized to them, and I'm going to continue working through that list throughout the week. And if you're interested in doing it, I'd love to hear what you guys are doing in challenges. Put in a comment, send us an email, put it in the comments, however you are, because we want to tell those stories throughout the week, because that's really what we're trying to do, is we're trying to innovate, we're trying to help us challenge each other, we're trying to help each other, we're trying to become better at what we are and better at our crafts. And as Brian and Danny, as I bring them back up, Brian and Danny, what are ways that you see people getting inspiration during these times? How are people finding inspiration, specifically in cold calling and in offer making, when it comes to now the quarantined America?
Brian?
I didn't hear you cut out. What was the question?
Well, I was asking, when our partners or people that are in business-to-business sales are looking for inspiration, other than just watching the high five every morning, how are ways that you're finding inspiration? So,
well, I can tell you this. I've been really impressed with. And again, you're talking to a guy who who grew up without a cell phone and without the internet, but. I've been on PayProtect's Facebook page a lot, and there's a lot of really positive things that people are saying and people are doing on there. I think a lot of the social media, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but a lot of the social media, in my opinion, has been very, very positive. I think everybody realizes that we're all in this thing together. Right, I think you see commercials on that and so forth. So I think staying on social media, and again, you're talking. I can't even believe those words are coming out of my mouth. But those things have been. You turn on CNN, Fox News. I mean, it's a little bit different, right? I mean, I'm still waiting for something good to read about. But as far as like staying on, especially PayProtect, and listen to Matt Hoskins' message, Danny Shard. Those kinds of things. I think that those are the kinds of things that Nate Manahan's messages are very, very positive. And those are the kinds of things that, every once in a while, just during the day when I'm on the phone with somebody and it's not going my way, I'll click on one of the videos on Facebook and just kind of, just watch it for a little bit, just to make myself feel a little bit better. That's it. Yeah,
mine is really the kind of piggybacking on what Brian's saying. Really, just things like the virtual roadshow that we're doing. Right, Nate, you've put all of this together, working with all of our vendors. Keith Sampson's doing one too that partners are going to be able to be a part of this week. And I think it's just staying engaged with the people that you work with the companies that you work with, but more importantly too, like, digging in to get educated more. You want to talk about a time in all of our lives right now when it's very easy to kind of lose some of that passion, right? Lose some of that fire because you're not out doing it every day like you have been, right? We're all having to adjust. A lot of us are staying inside in our homes. So if we can stay engaged and stay educated, right? Like jump into different topics. listen to podcasts, listen to the High Five every morning as just one of the many things. But get yourself engaged in some of this stuff that we're putting out there and other companies are putting out there, and you're going to find yourself just buried into this of ways that you're going to be thinking differently. And before you know it, we're going to be through this. So I think the more that we can dive into that and put ourselves out there, be educated, it's going to help a lot of people get through it, and they're going to stay passionate, right? They're going to keep that fire going because they're learning more, and they're going to have a lot more available to them because they spent the time to educate themselves once we get through it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and certainly there's more free content out there. So what I would say is than ever, so take a period of time, become disciplined, because it can take too much of your time, and there is such a thing as too much training and not enough doing. But simply take a period of time, scheduled in your day, whenever you're most alert and focused, and just get involved. Whether it's in getting involved in the Facebook group, there's tons of Facebook and LinkedIn activities, both in B2B sales and merchant service sales. Whatever you want to focus in on marketing, there's all this free content. There's people on Instagram where they're just doing lives for huge amount of periods and say, I'm going to focus for 1 hour every day, or 30 minutes in 2 segments, or whatever's best for you, and just focus and drive and just try to figure out, okay, what can I learn? Because it's all at your fingertips. You're within 1 degree of finding it, and just keep doing it and focus every day. Hey, this is what I'm going to do, and that's what I encourage. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to have a little bit of fun, a little bit of excitement. We're going to start snippeting all this and giving you in smaller bits and pieces throughout the day. So you can, if you just want to watch each topic, by the end of the week, hopefully we'll have our system put together where you'll be able to watch each topic by itself. And then we'll have the best 30-second Brian Linke sound bites that you can have too. And you can watch those in a variety of ways. But we're just trying to create as many things as we can to help you out. And Danny highlighted it earlier. One of the things you'll get the announcement about this, but Keith is doing a Transcend virtual roadshow Wednesday and Thursday from 10 to 4 Eastern each of those days. You can sign up, and I'll give you the link there, or I'm going to be hosting throughout most of the day. I'm just going to simulcast it into our Facebook group, but kind of do a Mystery Science 3000 and just kind of talk over it. And because everything you hear is relevant, some of it we do slightly different. So we'll be able to talk about it, have our own chat going, and just have our papertech of looking at what's going on there too. So there's so many ways to get yourself trained and inspired and learning new things. And certainly the thing I also encourage you is look outside, take a couple degrees out, learn from someone who's not, don't just learn from papertech. That would be a failure. They'll certainly come to us. We're going to train and build you up. But there are lots of resources out there, and find something that resonates with you and you're like, man, this is going to inspire me and give me practical tips. And if you find you go a week and you don't act on something that you're listening to, stop listening to it. That's another tip. So on that, last comments and tips, Mr. Brian, Mr. Danny. We're going to be back tomorrow with a whole new lineup talking about risk-taking in the business. But Brian, Danny, what are the last things that you want to highlight today?
We're into this. How many weeks now? And I think it was hard at the beginning. I think it continues to get harder. Right? I think by the date was April 1st. Obviously, that's not happening. I just think that you need to just wake up every day, get on LinkedIn. There's a lot of really good content on there as far as motivational stuff, and just keep reading, watching videos, getting on the High Five, and just keep unplugging and just keep doing it, and we'll get through it.
How about you, Mr. Danny Shard?
Yeah, couldn't agree more, guys. We're kind of right in the meat of this. I feel like we're kind of right in the middle of it, and April's going to be challenging. Nobody's downplaying that, but just stay engaged, stay focused, try learning new things. Join us every morning if you can, because we're going to keep being here with you every day, and we'll get through this together. So keep powering through out there, and call us if you need anything. We're still here for you.
All right, on that, this has been another episode of the High Five, and we will see you tomorrow. Here is our logo and animation, and certainly listen to our new theme song.
I know we have one.
Opinions hide, discussions are there to show about nothing and everything. It's all the same. We've got sports, entertainment, sales, and marketing. Time for the High Five. We got
High five.